Thank you, Karthikeyan, and thank the organizers. I hope you're able to see my slide and also hear me. I would
Yes.
like to start by quoting what the well-known Hollywood actress Mae West said. If I had known I was going to live this long, I would have taken better care of myself. A very provocative article said, it's Corona calling, time for rehabilitation. Professor Goel has already emphasized the importance of tele-rehabilitation, and I'm going to go a little more into specific details. What is the definition of tele-rehabilitation? Obviously, the use of information and communication technology for delivery of rehabilitation services. We need to have a very clear idea of what exactly we mean by rehabilitation. This helps maintain, restore, or improve skills for activities of daily life which have either been lost or impaired because a person was sick, hurt, or living with temporary or permanent disability. The word tele implies user-friendly technology, deployment of user-friendly technology, which definitely should be flexible, simple, intuitive, and have a tolerance for error, because we must understand that unlike other telemedicine activities, people requiring tele-rehab presumably have either cognitive defects or have some impaired physical defects, and therefore the technology has to be customized for this. Remote devices used at the patient end for tele-rehab should integrate with communication and software system, as beneficiaries are likely to have deficiency or impairments of gross motor skill, etc. Now, Colonel Goel has already mentioned that the CAGR, compound annual growth rate, is a staggering 18.5%. From a practical point of view, this is going to be viable not only in the world but in India, and this is going to be commercially viable. And from a purely business opportunity and ROI, tele-rehabilitation is the way to go. I was very surprised when I found there were journals on Journal of Tele-Rehabilitation. There were at least 10 books which I could see on tele-rehabilitation, all brought out just in the last 1 year. And there are so many papers on virtual rehabilitation, meaning the use of augmented reality, augmented virtual reality, and so on. Again, Colonel Goel has mentioned this in passing, a little more details why tele-rehabilitation in India is necessary, not tomorrow, not day after tomorrow, but yesterday. 6% of seniors live alone in India. It may appear that the percentage is not very high, but when you realize that there are at least 100 million people in India over the age of 65, we are talking of 8, 9 million people who are living all alone. Very interesting fact is that 90% of elderly internet users utilize the social media to connect with family and friends. Contrary to a general perception that the elderly people are not computer savvy, India probably is an exception. Every friend, relative of mine, everybody whom I know above the age of 60 probably know a good amount of use of social media and the use of technology. And again, 15% of global population, according to World Health Organization, requires some sort of rehabilitation. This development or use of smartphones and access to internet is staggering. We are talking of 505 million active internet users. And even more interesting is the fact that they are more in rural India than in urban India. A very preliminary search, I was able to pick up 21 papers. I was really shocked, honestly. I never expected 21 papers originating from India on exclusively the field of tele-rehabilitation. And even more, surprise to me, I won't say it's a shock, a very pleasant surprise, was digital advertisements in the social media from tier 2 cities like Coimbatore, North Indian cities, saying we are the first in Coimbatore to have tele-rehabilitation. Are you aware of tele-rehabilitation and COVID recovery patients, etc., etc.? And as the president of AAPR mentioned, it was particularly gratifying that a government hospital in Salem, government physiotherapists have already started offering online consultation. My own personal experience, I had the largest telemedicine network in this part of the world. I asked our chief physiotherapist on the use of telephysiotherapy, and unfortunately, our Department of Physical Medicine and Rehab, though we have a very good department, are not at this point of time actively involved in telemedicine. For telephysiotherapy, I was told we have done about 150 to 175 consultations where head of the very senior physiotherapist from Apollo Main Hospital, Chennai, interacts with a physiotherapist at the remote end or with a non-physiotherapist and tells them how exactly to go for physiotherapy. Now, I'm going into the details. It's not as simple as one would perhaps think. Please understand, telemedicine is not just video conferencing, not at all. You need let's look at tele-rehab. The background must be appropriate with adequate lighting, and it's very important that we give an air of seriousness at one end. Therefore, the rehab doctor or the physiotherapist or the occupational therapist, whoever it is, must be dressed in a proper professional clinical attire. Minimize background noise and risk of interruptions. The beginning of the virtual visit should be observation, appropriate, necessary physical examination, ensuring adequate audio-visual connection. Of course, we assume that a word-informed consent has been obtained, and then there's a lot of technical preparation in this. You must have a standard operating procedure till such time as you're absolutely sure about it. Training modules, reliable internet, computer. We strongly recommend a headset, speakers, microphone, familiarity with the chosen virtual platform, and of course, virtual follow-up appointment orders. What are the methods of tele-rehabilitation? It is not as just video conferencing. As I said, it can start with simple physical motor therapy. It can be more specialized occupational therapy, speech language audiology, and of course, the use of tele-robotic therapy, and very recently, gamification. I've seen my grandchildren play video games. I never in my wildest dreams thought that these video games, the same technology, would today be used very successfully in promoting tele-rehabilitation. Now, the components of a virtual physical therapy should include assessment, intervention, monitoring, education, and training. This implies a two-way, real-time audio-visual visit. Of course, we assume there is a webcam or a proper video conferencing camera, a video conferencing system, etc. Real-time physical visits or physiotherapy teleconsultations are not absolutely essential. It can be an asynchronous e-visit where remote evaluation of recorded videos or images. This is one thing which is absolutely fantastic. And unlike a face-to-face consultation, I'm a neurosurgeon. When I see a patient with a movement disorder or with any neurological disability, I examine him for 4 minutes or 6 minutes. It's quite possible that I could have missed something. On the other hand, if a video is taken of this and then the patient is examined again at my leisure, I could also show this video to multiple group, other doctors, my colleagues, my students, my seniors, etc. The chances are somebody would pick up something which I may have missed. So this is a great advantage in assessing a patient with a physical disability. I foresee that in the next couple of years, we will have the regular use of robotic arms, robotic physiotherapy. The quaternary care hospitals in the departments of physical medicine and rehabilitation have several robotic systems. They have just started having data gloves, smart glasses in a 3D environment. All this allows for a much greater sense of immersion. Now, if you ask me what are the components of a telerehabilitation program, I would say the first and foremost is define a patient's diagnosis for an individual customized therapeutic program. The cliche, one size does not fit all, is particularly relevant. Do not for a moment think that that every patient with a right-sided hemiplegia gets the same exercises. No, it doesn't depend on the MRC grading alone. It depends on the individual's reaction, on his cognitive facilities, the cultural aspects, socioeconomic aspects. So many factors need to be taken account. Maximum customization is absolutely essential. Ideally, you require a real-time biofeedback, and this alone will ensure adherence to treatment. I foresee that in the years to come, there will be compliance with regulatory and standards. Privacy, of course, is very, very important. Now, how do you deliver a TR service, a telerehabilitation service? Obviously, you need what are the methods or what are the means? Why do we need the telerehabilitation? One, it reduces travel. So despite isolation, waiting time is reduced, flexibility. And of course, I foresee again that we are going to have accelerometers with GPS. I have a Fitbit watch, which I bought 2 years ago in the US. And even this simple entry-level Fitbit watch gives me all sorts of data. So you are going to have very sophisticated pedometers. You're going to have virtual imagery, which provides a step count, energy expenditure, and so on. So assessment, monitoring, prevention, all this I have already mentioned to you earlier. This is very important. Now let's look at the clinical indications. The clinical indications for telerehabilitation are considerable. The most common would be musculoskeletal disorders or secondary to fractures, secondary to herniated disc, spondylosis, osteoarthritis, cervical spondylosis, frozen shoulder, post-joint replacement. When I was a medical student and a postgraduate, joint replacements are extremely rare. Today, every busy department, just even 3 to 4 joint replacements every single day in a specialized OT. Neurology, neurorehabilitation is a distinct entity. NIMHANS, Chitra Tirunal, most of the national institutes and even the quaternary care hospitals today have a dedicated neurorehabilitation department. Cerebral palsy has already been mentioned, Guillain-Barré syndrome, Duchenne muscular dystrophy, so many disorders involving posture and gait. What probably is not generally recognized by the non-specialist is pulmonary rehabilitation, COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and in the COVID era, rehabilitation post-COVID. This I foresee is going to form a significant percentage of the patients who are going to the rehabilitation medicine in the future. Most government hospitals in the country have already decided or have already started having a dedicated post-COVID outpatient department. Post-ICU, of course, with more and more patients being discharged quickly from the ICU, your home is going to be converted into an ICU. A huge corporate chain like the Apollo Hospitals has an entire division called home care with a few hundred doctors and a chief medical officer in charge of purely delivering health or home health care. Again, I foresee that in my lifetime, less and less of physical pitfalls are going to a hospital, the doctor in your pocket, a laboratory in your pocket, a hospital in your home. This is what is going to be. Conventionally, physiotherapy, occupational therapy, rehabilitation are all associated with huge brick and mortar hospitals having 100 beds, 200 beds, and 1,000 beds. I foresee that the home is going to be converted into a hospital. And if I can do a real-time ECG monitoring at home, why can't I provide telephysiotherapy services also? Again, visual, hearing, cardiovascular, mental health. Mental health is actually an epidemic which has already been in existence. Post-COVID, the numbers are even become more. So all this is going to be a part of tele-rehabilitation. Now, the quality of healthcare. What is the purpose of tele-rehabilitation? To restore, to the extent possible, both physically and mentally, processes so that the quality of life improves to what it was at least before. Reduction of pain, and I can vouch for this. I never thought the physical medicine was such an important department. Honestly, let me be very honest. Though I have been in neurosurgical practice for 45 years, I had no idea what exactly is being done in a physical medicine department till I went there as a patient. And believe me, it was a fantastic experience. I mean, I never thought that physiotherapy had such a very major part, and including pain. The relief of pain, significant reduction in pain, not by taking analgesics, but purely by doing the correct exercise at the right time. The right person needs to guide it. Frozen shoulder, there are case reports of tele-rehabilitation in the treatment of frozen shoulder. Total knee replacement, following joint replacement. In Western countries, tele-rehabilitation is an absolutely routine. These are photographs of body area network. These are photographs which are taken from the literature. I'm very sure that this is today is just a beginning, and I hope in the next 1 or 2 years we will see Indian journals, articles like this being published in Indian journals by Indian physical medicine and rehabilitation specialists. It's very easy to give a webinar. It's extremely easy to give a talk for 1 hour on tele-rehabilitation. But what are the challenges? The challenges are many. All needs which I would like to require. I have a wish list. I am a physiatrist. I have a wish list. In the real world, it's going to be extremely difficult to get this, particularly in a low resource setting. First of all, we need to liaison with existing services to reallocate resources. We need the assistance of the CEO of a private hospital, or the medical superintendent, or the dean of a government medical college to reallocate resources. Your entire mindset needs to be changed. An interesting problem which has been raised is the fact that today India is becoming so advanced digitally. We no longer talk of e-governance, we talk of m-governance. Today, most of the governance is done by digitally, and digital access to welfare benefits and interventions. There is one school of thought which says that this would hurt people without internet access. Again, privacy concerns. The Western countries are paranoid about privacy. We may not be paranoid, but nevertheless, I would not like, if I am a patient, I certainly, and at the remote end, the physiatrist is supervising my rehabilitation, I would certainly like to have some privacy. The advantages of a face-to-face, which is what I would call a disadvantages of tele-rehabilitation, is, let us be honest, a face-to-face service helps in socialization. At the end of the day, socialization is very, very important. I remember 40 years ago when I was a postgraduate in neurosurgery, and I so vividly remember a patient came all the way from Tambaram to the Madras Medical College to get medicines worth about 1 rupee, phenobarbital, Gardinal. And I, in my ignorance, I literally screamed at her, shouted at her. I said, look, why are you spending 10 rupees to come from Tambaram to Madras Medical College, spending 3 hours? You could have bought these medicines outside. After all, it's going to cost you 1 rupee. I thought I was being very smart. My boss, Professor Jagannathan, the then head of Institute of Neurology, he overheard me, and then he came and told me, Ganapati, why are you interfering? Why did you not let her come? At least for 3 hours, she will be away from her mother-in-law. I mean, these are things which need to be taken into account. There is a lot of advantage in going to an outpatient department, in going to a physiotherapy department, socialization, to meet people, mentorship, hands-on training. And though I wouldn't be here if I was not a proponent of tele-rehabilitation, still please remember that tele-rehabilitation should not replace completely a face-to-face consult, a face-to-face rehabilitation. I so vividly remember the physiotherapist playing her arms and helping me do it. There's a lot of difference. Whatever, however much I see a video, I don't think it will ever replace a direct physical touch. So please remember that telerehabilitation also has got some limitations. The challenges include power, technology. A major component is technology. We are improving the Bharat network. So many new schemes are being developed. When I started telemedicine, we were talking of 64 kbps. Today, we are talking of 100 to 200 mbps, and most national universities and national institutes use 1 gbps. So this is what the country is changing, but nevertheless, you will have bandwidth as a problem. Shortage of multimedia devices. Dr. Goyal has stressed the necessity for training. I would go one step further. I would say retraining, untraining, unskilling, unlearning. Unlearning is as important as learning. The elderly require repeated instructions for telerehabilitation. It's extremely difficult for a normal 65-year-old or 70-year-old to be familiar with a telemedicine rehabilitation platform which is used. And therefore, particularly if the person at the other end is a 25-year-old bachelor of physiotherapy who has just passed out, he is not going to have the enormous patience required to tell the elderly person at the remote end how to switch on the camera, how to do that, how to do this, etc., etc. So these are very, very important. Lack of physical space. Let us not for a moment think that every house you have a separate room dedicated for telerehabilitation. It could be a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom house with 7 people living. So these are the practical issues. It was absolutely amazing that the Ministry of Ayush released as early as last year an entire 48-page document on tele-yoga services. Tele-yoga, to a large extent, I think, overlaps or is a part of tele-rehabilitation. I have always been stressing for the last 10 years that telemedicine will never, ever take off unless there is political will. Today, we have got that political will. No less a person than the Prime Minister of India, every time he addresses the nation, with or without reference to COVID, talks about telemedicine, telemedicine. Today, every single state has got a telemedicine nodal officer. The 539 medical colleges, I understand that at least 80% of these medical colleges have a telemedicine nodal officer. And I'm sure that telemedicine will also be introduced into the curriculum very soon. Now, these are just to show how gamification, unfortunately, I am an outsider. I have no idea. I hope during the panel discussion, some of the attendees here will enlighten me as to whether this is being used in India in rehabilitation. But in JAMA Neurology, at least, there are several papers which talk about the use of games. Cognitive telerehabilitation. I do know that NIMHANS is doing a good work in this. I personally know of the professor of psychiatry who is this telling with me, an ardent telemedicine enthusiast, Dr. Suresh. So a lot of things are happening here also, cognitive. These are just photographs which are self-explanatory, which tell you how illustrations of telerehabilitation in progress. All you need is a laptop, or of course, you can have a 52-inch TV, whatever you want, from the comfort of your living room, whatever it is you can have. This was a paper again published from India, Indian Journal of Palliative Care. We are again talking of video and haptics. The day is not far off where you'll be wearing gloves with sensors which will enable the therapist at the distant end. It could be 1,000 miles away, 10,000 miles away. I had the privilege of wearing these gloves several years ago when it was in a research stage. I understand it's now becoming commercial. Very soon it will be available where you will have sensors, and the sensation which the patient feels actually can be remotely transmitted through the internet. You definitely will be able to see whether it is rigidity, spasticity, flaccidity. You will be able to do 80% of what you're now doing. You will be able to do this across the internet in a few years to come. Beginner's course in tele-speech therapy, use of tele-rehabilitation in a developing country. The literature is just full of such articles. Imagine a journal on neuroengineering rehabilitation. I mean, I can't even believe this. And in spite of being a neurosurgeon with some knowledge of technology, I found it very difficult even to understand what most of these papers talk about. In this particular picture, you can see the author talks about the changing roles of clinicians and technology in rehabilitation. He talks of the present and he talks of the future. And what does he think of the future? In the future, he thinks there will be robots trained in rehabilitation, and these robots will be communicating with a smart wheelchair, a smart cane, and so on and so forth. When I was introduced, it was mentioned that I am on a committee for BIRAC. I have personally reviewed, evaluated at least a dozen projects on smart canes, on visual rehabilitation of the blind, of the near blind, of those who are legally blind, etc., with a gross visual loss. It is absolutely amazing how very soon we are going to have smart gadgets which will give you an audio alert, and already artificial vision has already come. There are a few papers which have been published how synthetic vision, the totally blind, a blind will be able to see, the deaf will be able to hear, the lame, those who are not, the lame will be able to walk. This is not science fiction. This is going to happen in the next few years. It was my privilege 2 years ago to spend a full day at the Johnson Space Center in Houston. And there I realized that if at all there is tele-rehabilitation, if there is physiotherapy, the one place where you cannot exist is astronauts, is space travel. How many of us know that 2.5 hours every day, every single day is spent those in outer space, and the longest has spent 1 year. I just forgot the name of the astronaut to spend 1 year who came back. I saw some of these myself. It is absolutely amazing to see the total difference in physical medicine and rehabilitation when you're talking of microgravity. With the Gaganyaan mission already announced, it's been postponed. ISRO will soon be joining this. And I think tele-rehabilitation, even though our astronauts are going to be in low Earth orbit only for 7 days, it's very, very critical because the flaccidity, the spasticity, the tone of your muscle totally changes with microgravity. And our astronauts have already been trained on this, and physical medicine is going to play a critical role in the Gaganyaan mission of India. Now I could go on, but I think let's have a little more time for the panel discussion. What do I think is going to happen if I were to give the same lecture 3 years from now or 4 years from now? I would be talking of smart homes in smart cities. Smart homes in smart cities in a smart India is definitely going to be a reality. And staying at home or aging in place is better than offers better health outcomes. I am a senior citizen. I am very clear in my mind that even if the day when I become physically or mentally challenged, I certainly would like to stay at home, and I would like to leave the world from my house rather than from an ICU. And this is generally what most people would like to do, though all of us don't have a control on this. Chatbots, you just log in to the internet and you find whether it is a bank or whether it is a pizza selling unit or whether it is Amazon or Flipkart or whatever it is. Today, chatbots have become absolutely routine. You are going to get an AI-enabled chatbot, a companion at home who will add value, providing smarter care. So rehabilitation in the larger sense of the word includes medication reminders, including contacting the caregiver and children in emergencies. Unfortunately, in the years to come, the concept of a joint family, 3 generations, 4 generations living together is becoming less and less. Most of us live alone with our spouse. Our children are in other parts of the world. And this is what is going to happen. A robot is going to fix your doctor's appointment. It will send a reminder, and the cost of these robots is already commercially available in Japan. I personally am waiting for the cost to considerably come down, and who knows, I may also end up with a robot in my house. Functional monitoring with bed sensors, activity sensors, motion sensors, gait monitors. I was talking of smart homes, smart cities, the smart home of the future. The walls, the doors, the windows, even the floors will all be lined with sensors. the cost of sensors are dropping like anything. You will be getting a connected home. Your home will be connected to your family physician with pressure sensing floors, smart furniture, medical sensors. All this will be integrated and the need has to be contextual. There will be powered wheelchairs, intelligent wheelchairs, prosthetic limb controls, home automation systems. Home automation systems are already available. The costs are coming down. And I believe in the next couple of years, home automation will be a standard, at least for the middle class and the upper middle class. I could go on, but let me stop here. What would be my take home message? I belong to the BC era. I'm not talking of before Corona. I'm talking of before computers. I was the last group of neurosurgeons in India who was trained, who qualified, who taught before computers came into a hospital. There was no CT scan. We were taught to listen to a patient. I so vividly remember, listen. William Osler, Sir William Osler said this 120 years ago. He said, listen. The patient is telling you the diagnosis. Whatever be the technology at your command, please understand, you need to understand if you want to succeed, if you want to create a user experience, if you want to create a customer delight, the only way telerehabilitation will improve is not a carrot and a stick, is not by the dean of the college saying you will jolly well do telerehabilitation, otherwise you won't get your salary. No. Or even by giving you an incentive to do a telerehabilitation. No. The only way telerehabilitation will improve is to create that wow effect in the beneficiary. The beneficiary must say, look at that. The physiotherapist was 200 miles away or 20 miles away. I thought he was sitting next to me. What an experience. This was absolutely amazing. So you need to understand who is the person who is using the telerehabilitation. Is it a 15-year-old boy to whom you're giving it? Is it a 92-year-old person? How is it going to help? And please spend effort and time in customizing a well-defined changing goals that is critical. It is the beneficiary's goals that matter, not your goals. I want to stress this again and again. It is the beneficiary's goals that matter. You use technology to help him achieve that goal. It may take much longer. You will be able to reach across to 1,000 potential patients by advertising yourself in Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, etc., etc., etc. This may be by word of mouth. It could be very, very slow. But believe me, when you have a beneficiary who is thrilled with you, he tells somebody, somebody tells somebody, that is the only way any product is going to really permeate into the market. Get into the minds of the end user. Find out what exactly he wants. Customer delight is not just a marketing ploy, but this is what you really need to use. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, I very strongly believe that a solution should not go in search of a problem. Today, we have peripheral medical devices, we have robotic physiotherapy equipment, we have sensors, we have all sorts of equipment. Multinational companies are at you. The very fact that I'm just giving this talk on telerehab, I've already got 5 messages in LinkedIn from various companies saying that they are going to promoting this product, that product, this product, etc., etc. This is not the way to go about it. Remember, octogenarians have come from another planet. It is very difficult for a 25-year-old or a 30-year-old to get into the minds of a 75-year-old or an 85-year-old. But it is an 85-year-old who requires telerehabilitation far more than a 30-year-old. So please get yourself, put yourself into the mind of the beneficiary, understand what the beneficiary wants, and customize your remote physiotherapy, your remote occupational therapy, whether it is visual, hearing, speech, swallowing. Today we use real-time fiber optic endoscopy as a rehabilitation for swallowing difficulties. I mean, this is all fantastic, but does that particular patient living in a tier 2 or a tier 3 city in India really needs this? Is this appropriate? Can he afford it? Is it cost effective? So take into all that. And finally, this is the only way Please remember that a fool with a tool is still a fool. This is what Lars Lexel, the inventor of the Gamma knife, said 55 years ago, and I think it's absolutely right. Technology is a means to achieve an end and not an end by itself. The day your technology is used without a clinical, specific objective in mind, that day will be the death of that particular technology. I may be very old fashioned, and most of the youngsters here may not agree with me, but I think I would not be honest if I do not say what I am talking from the bottom of my heart. Thank you, Karthikeyan. Thank you, everybody. And I hope today will be the launch of telerehabilitation in a very big way. And I hope in my lifetime, telerehabilitation will become as important, as noted as teleophthalmology is today, as teleradiology is today. I believe it has the business potential. I believe there is a market, there is a need. I believe the time has come. We have people who require telerehabilitation. We have people who are competent to give telerehabilitation. We have the necessary information communication technology. We have everything, but we are in silos. All that is needed is to bring all of us together into one single platform, and networking, as again one of the previous speakers mentioned, I think this is the single most important event today. Thank you once again for this opportunity.
So thank you so much, sir.